So welcome to a brand new podcast. We're starting off the new year, 2025 Good Dads. We've already have the whole year planned out, and it's going to be a 4-part series. And Dr. Baker, the founder and president of Good Dads, are going to tell us a little bit how this year is going to look.
Except for it's going to be a 12-part series.
Yeah. Well, 4 series in each month, but it'll be a 12-part, 12 months in 1 year.
Yeah.
Usually 4 weeks in a month.
Yeah.
I think that's...
Except for the months are 5.
Right.
Yeah, there we go.
It's, there's curveballs all over the place.
Yeah.
So today we'll be doing modular 1, which is Good Dads, Great Communities.
Well, yes, we're going to talk about, so one of our monthly topics will be why good dads are important to a great community. And there are a lot of different aspects of that. This is a program we've already developed that people can purchase, or if they're in Missouri, we actually give it to them once they want to become a chapter. But we're going to talk about what's in that first module, which is why good dads are important to a great community. Why? Why do we even say that?
Okay. We also have intentional fathers.
Yes. I think a lot of dads kind of go through the motions in their day, and there are things that are important to them. They want their children to be kind or responsible or truthful, and yet they don't often think about what could I actually do that would increase the odds that my child will grow in those characteristics.
I want to be engaged, but how do I do this?
Yeah,
I got to make a little game plan.
Yeah,
right.
And
then we have a difference a dad makes.
And that goes to what difference does a dad make in a child's life? Because lots of times we know the difference that a mom makes, but we don't think about why men and specifically are important to a child's development. What do kids get from their dads that they would not get from their mom?
And then also hot topics.
Hot topics.
Please explain that a little bit more, because I even had some questions on hot topics. And once again, this is breaking up our 4-part series on each and every month as we look forward to 2025.
Right. So hot topics are things that are in the media, in the news, that dads are wondering about. I mean, just kind of a perennial favorite is right now would be how much time should a child get to spend on their cell phone? How early should they get a cell phone or a smartphone, and just those kinds of things. And how do they get to take it into their room at night, or where does it go? So a lot of parents wonder about this, like, what should I do about that? So that's a hot topic. And of course, if anything comes up that's really important over the year, we will probably address that in this podcast.
So how to get involved, a reminder of what Good Dads is, everything that we do will remind you constantly as we look forward to a brand new year at Good Dads in 2025.
And they might notice that they're not just listening to us. I mean, you can still just listen to us, but now you get to see us.
Yeah.
It's kind of exciting.
That's good for you, not so good for the radio guy. So, yeah.
I think it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. This Good Dads podcast is brought to you in part by our generous supporters. This week, we'd like to thank the following: Prime Inc., Table Rock Shores, Lorenz Plumbing, Heating and Air, Pinnacle Family Advisors, Basis Financial Group, Branson Public Schools. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Visit our website at gooddads.com to learn how to contribute to the Good Dads mission. So we welcome in Dr. Baker, president and founder of Good Dads, and we are starting things off this month and in the new year with Good Dads, Great Communities. So we'll start very basic. What does that mean, and how can people get involved? We always want to remind everyone the why, what we do, and it's always a friendly reminder of Good Dads, especially if they see the logo and they're like, what is this? I get it, it's Good Dads, but what is it?
What do you do?
Yeah.
And I mean, people often say to me, are you about bad dads becoming good dads, or what kind of dads are you about?
Or is this like egotistical where everybody it's a group
where
everybody thinks that they're good dads?
Yeah. So people have those questions, but this is for any dad. And so one of the things we're doing in Missouri right now that actually we could do in any state, it just happens that we started in Missouri, is that we're going into various communities and we're saying, This is why having a high percentage of good dads in your community is important for it to be a great community. In fact, I'm going to argue that you cannot be a great community, a great place to live, unless you have a high percentage of good dads, engaged fathers.
Okay, so and why did you, on what did you find, like some of the findings when you first started Good Dads? You know, obviously there were some facts and some missing pieces in our country for you to come up with that conclusion.
Well, before we talk about why it's important to have a high percentage of good dads, the three big factors, let's just talk about the fact that most of the time communities don't have anything for dads. And so one of the things we do in our first module is to help people look at what might be going on, or most often what's not going on. And so 10 years ago, when we started Good Dads, we looked in the community and said what was going on that would help a dad be a good dad. And it came down to really two things, maybe. One, some churches, some parts of the faith community offered a program in their church for dads, but mostly that would be only for the dads that attended there. It really wasn't a community-wide thing, and there wasn't any kind of consistent place that a person could go on any day of the week, any month of the year, and say, hey, do you have anything for dads? The other thing we noticed that there was a before-school program that encouraged fathers to get involved with their kids at school, and that happened in 8 of our 37 elementary schools, only 8. And so, first of all, it was just like, there is nothing. I would go to grant award assemblies or, foundations would be giving money, and the word dad or father never came up. I would hear mother, woman, baby, children, infant, but the word dad or father never came up.
Which are all great, by the way. All the things that you said are wonderful. Yeah. But you're right, there's something missing.
Obviously, I'm a woman, all right? I'm a woman, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I'm all about children, I've got grandchildren, but we also need dad. And so that was a concern. So that was the first thing. And then I'm thinking, well, if there are all these positive things for women, what are there for men? And we just couldn't think of any.
Yeah.
So not only it's like, well, men don't have anywhere to turn, and there are few, if any, community resources being devoted to helping them.
Yeah, and I don't want to speak for all dads, but sometimes we need some help on creative ideas. Yeah. We like to have fun, but just a little bit direction, a little organization, which is basically what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and what about, when a kid who's been climbing up in your lap and putting their arms around your neck becomes a teenager? And then that's not happening anymore. Or you feel a little awkward about the fact that your daughter now looks like a young woman. Or what about the fact that sometimes 13, 14, 15-year-olds can be a little mouthy? And how do you deal with that? So, there are a lot of ways. Or what if you travel for work? What if you're gone? Maybe you're an over-the-road driver. Prime Trucking is here in Springfield. They have 10,000 drivers nationwide. How do you be a good dad when you're doing that? So we looked at all those things, and we said we want to do something that would help any dad be more engaged with his child. So not just dads that have problems, but also dads that are just trying to make a living and support their family, and they want to know how to do this better. And maybe, a high percentage of men today grew up without a dad. I mean, like 25, 30%. So in their home. So how do they know how to do this if they didn't experience that themselves?
Okay. So what's next? How do we do Good Dads, Great Communities? I know you've mentioned Modular 1. How can we get involved, and what is the next step for dads that are like, you've just mentioned everything that I've been looking for, and it's not like I'm a braggadocious dad, but I would like to be more engaging and make sure that I'm doing an okay job here.
Yeah. So I think the first thing is you want to get community support. So once you've at least established that there is a need or a lack in the community, then you got to make the case for why it's important. And so there are 3 things that we say. One, if you want to have a safe community, then you need to have a high percentage of good dads. And how do I know this? Well, we know that approximately 85% of those incarcerated today grew up in a home without a dad. So you look at our prisons and you're like, wow. So if you don't care about anything else, most people do care about community safety. And when we have children who grow up in a home without dad, they're much more likely to be involved with the justice system. And just a simple local fact that came home to me on this, I'm a clinical psychologist. I did all the supervision for the therapist at one of our recovery programs here in Springfield. We talked about 214 unique men over a period of 2 years. So these were all men who had a history of incarceration and or addiction. They home planned, many of them, to this program, and only 8 of those guys grew up with a dad. So only 8 of 214 men at this particular facility grew up with a dad in their home. That becomes very real when you're talking about name after name after name after name. And they had, all had trouble with the law. So there we go. If you were to talk to Chief Paul Williams here in Springfield, the chief of police, he would say, we just rarely have a problem with kids who have an engaged dad. It just hardly ever happens.
Right.
So there's that. So community safety. Our communities are safer when we have a high percentage of good dads.
Mm-hmm.
Our number 2 is our schools are stronger. There is considerable evidence to support the fact that when fathers get involved with their child's education, kids do better in school. They know that school is important, so they go to school. Their attendance improves. They're also better behaved in school because they know that they may have the consequences of dad if they're not behaving in school.
I mean, I had that. It's the whole line. Wait until your dad gets home.
Yeah.
I did not like that. I did not like that line.
Well, my husband was a school principal.
Yeah.
And so he said, when I got mom in the office, that was one thing. But when dad came in, we got somewhere. So often, it's just the importance of a father coming into the school. And let's just say the fact is almost all of our schools are dominated by women. Now, again, I'm a woman. I was a teacher long ago and far away. It's not that I'm anti-female or anything, but there are very few male role models in school. And so my son was an assistant principal at 2 different large schools, Title I schools in Texas, and he said, Mom, I'm the only man in the building. So we really need more men in education, but in the meantime, if a dad is involved in his child's education, if he goes to the school, if he meets the child's teacher, if he encourages attendance, the kid's going to do better. Mm-hmm. And here's the remarkable thing. Even if your child doesn't have a dad, if there are a high percentage of dads, your child will do better in the community.
Yeah. Or a father figure. I know we talk a lot about with good dads and, maybe, someone's in a situation where they just don't have a possibility to have a dad, whether that would be a stepfather, an uncle, or a grandfather.
Any of those. We should be clear to say father figure, but have an important male role model in a child's life, particularly for boys, is really important. It's important for girls, but usually for different reasons. But for boys especially, to know how to be a responsible human being and a good citizen, they need a dad or a dad figure, a strong, secure dad figure.
Okay, and that brings us to number 3.
And that is a more robust economy.
Okay.
Because good dads are very motivated often to work hard for the benefit of their families. We have a lot of programs focused on economic development, securing jobs, employment programs. But the reason a person gets up and goes to work, even on the days they don't feel like getting up and going to work, is because they're working for someone. That's particularly true of men. It's like when I'm investing in a future with this woman with these children, then I feel like I want to work harder. I want to be more productive than men who are just unattached. So having a good relationship with your child, you realize why you're working, because you're providing for that child and you want them to have a good future.
Okay, so we have safe community, schools that are stronger, and more robust economy, kind
That's
of
right.
the three ways of
Yep.
when we talk about good dads building great communities, as we will this whole year.
Absolutely.
And I guess my next question is very, very basic question. How can we get more involved? How can we take it to the next step? Like, these are all great ideas.
Right.
How do we get involved with good dads, and how do we, I guess, basically check out the modular? You know what I mean? This is it's plural though.
Oh, it's module.
But modulars. This is not just one. It's modulars. Is it modular? What did I say? I'm so focused on this pamphlet.
It's a great module, but it may not be quite that entertaining.
For some reason, I was really wanting to request a modular unit. No, how can we get involved? How can we get taken to the next step? I think.
All right.
Whether it's a module or modulars
Or whatever. You can contact us, just info@gooddads.com, and we will find the best place for you to get involved. But we also have, obviously, we have weekly podcasts. We have regular blog posts we have a ton of resources, but then we have programs like, if you want this in your community, if you're like, I want this to be a great community, contact us, and then we will help walk you through the process of getting a community engagement meeting where we come in, or informational meeting where we come in and tell you any place in Missouri, and frankly, we'd probably go outside the state for the right kind of invitation to tell people about how to do this.
Okay, yeah, and you gave a couple of different great examples of whether that be breakfasts, lunches in the community. Right. I know you mentioned churches, but this is also outside of church.
Oh, yeah. This is, we always say we're faith-friendly, but not faith-based. And by that, we mean that we've not met a church group that was not pretty excited about what we were doing, but we don't include scripture or that. We leave that to the faith community to do that portion of it. So no, Chamber of Commerce, county commissioners, business leaders, these are the kind of people who have invited us to come to their community because they knew that it would be pretty hard to have a great community if they did not have this part.
Yeah. Basically it's like a class.
It is.
But you're doing it for your whole community. Yes. You're saying, what can we do? What is the action? Which I know we talk about. That's a big plan of these. Some of these are really good ideas, and some of the podcasts we do are really neat ideas. But I think the biggest part of that is the action portion afterwards, and that is getting a group of dads together. And what are we going to do about it? And how do we do it? And how do we focus on 1, 2, and 3, and all of these things in our specific community?
Right. So this is module 1. Okay. And there are 6 modules. But in those 6 modules, these are the things we talk about. Mm-hmm. Another topic will be, and you and I will talk about this, like who are you? Where you begin? Like some people begin, like I said, with the Chamber of Commerce. Some people begin with maybe from a governmental perspective, like a county commissioner. Some people are part of a faith community and they're like, we really want this in our community. How do we do that? So we do that. And then we talk about how do you find champions? And you have to have champions in 6 sectors. So, but we're not going to talk about those sectors today. That'll be next time. Then we also talk about, well, where do you begin? Do you start with our Strong Schools program, or are you going to work with at-risk dads? Or maybe you want to work with dads in a manufacturing setting because we do that. And then we'll also talk about fundraising. How do you do fundraising for your program? And then we'll spend some time talking about at-risk dads and the need for that, and how you can gear up to do that sort of work.
And I think the most important thing, and I've been in some of these groups too, is what you just said, is pairing people up with like-minded and other men and or dads that are very similar to them in their community. Because first of all, it can be a little overwhelming. If you go into something and you don't know, obviously the unknown, you don't know what to expect. If you go in there and you're like, I'm not going to fit in, this is too much, I feel like I'm going to school again, I don't want to do this. But when you get in a group setting of people who share like-minded views, traditions, values, and or just backgrounds and careers, and from the same place, things start to click a little easier.
You know, we've been doing classes across the state of Missouri since 2018. So close to 7 years. And people have remarked about how engaging our programs are. People don't just sit and take notes. And that's really been remarkable about what we do. Also, we find that people who volunteer find it very rewarding because they're not just seeing that people are learning, people's lives are being transformed. It's a transformational experience. So if you really want to do something that's going to make a real difference in the life of someone else, this is that thing. This thing will do that thing. And you're not just making a difference in the life of that dad, but his family as well.
Very good. So Good Dads, Great Communities. Dr. Jennifer Baker, of course, president and founder of Good Dads. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.